Hi, I'm Corey Flynn, and today I'm going to show you how to make an apple cake that's really, really easy, even if you don't normally bake. It's a great way to use up extra apples if you've gone apple picking. So let's get started. It's a very typical cake in that you start by creaming sugar and butter. So 6 tablespoons of butter into your mixer, along with a cup of white sugar. And you want to use your paddle attachment for this if you have a stand mixer. If you have a hand mixer, the good news is this is still really easy to mix, so don't worry. All right, I'm still getting used to this one, it's new. So, probably about like halfway up you want to keep it. And just wait until they're nice and incorporated. You got your 2 room temperature eggs. If you're like me and you always forget to leave them out for a while first, what you can do is run them under some warm tap water. That'll help you bring them down to that good temperature. So, you just crack them into the bowl. And check the shells in the sink if you're classy like me. And then a little glug of vanilla, about a teaspoon. You can kind of eyeball it. And keep stirring. This is the consistency that you're looking for. It's going to be kind of light and fluffy, very well incorporated. So now what we're going to do is mix our dry ingredients. It's a cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and half a teaspoon of salt, and then 3 tablespoons of cornmeal. Just give it a little mix. What we're going to do is add this and not mix it for very long at all. Put it on the lowest setting and just slowly sort of tap it in. And probably no more than like 10 seconds because you really don't want it to be overmixed at all. And then we're going to add some milk after that. So let's get started with this part. And you're probably going to spill, but it's okay. Okay, so now that the batter is starting to look a little more like a cake batter, we want to add half a cup of milk. And again, we really don't want to overmix. Okay. This should probably be good enough. Once we scrape down the bowl, we can kind of incorporate anything that's missing from the main mixture, like all these little floury bits that fall from the side. Just give it a little scrape. And don't worry if it looks lumpy, because it's going to cook out. You're not going to notice when it's done. So, now we're ready to make our glaze. We're just going to put this to the side and go over to the stove. Okay, so now we're going to start to make our glaze. I have in this pan 4 tablespoons of butter. We're going to start melting that. Just put your stove on like medium, maybe a little bit below. And as that's melting, you want to add half a cup of packed brown sugar, and you can use light or dark, it doesn't really matter. I have light, so that's what I'm using, but if you want to use the dark, it'll make it a little more chewy. It's kind of fun. So basically, we're just trying to melt this down and make it all mushy. This is cinnamon and nutmeg, sort of like a dash of each. And we're going to give this a couple minutes to sort of incorporate. Once it is actually all a liquid, it should boil for about 30 seconds, and then you're going to be ready to assemble the whole thing. So now our glaze is boiling, which is awesome. As you can see, it's kind of all bubbling, and I'm going to let it boil for about 30 seconds, and then take it off the heat. And now the glaze is pretty much done, so now we can assemble the cake. So what I have here is a 9-inch cake pan. I have greased it up with some cooking spray. And now what I'm going to do is take the glaze that we just made, use a spatula to get it all in, and just sort of plop it down there. And just kind of spread it out over the bottom as evenly as you can. Good enough. And now what you want to do is take, I usually use about a handful, maybe about a third to a half of a cup of pecans, and you just sort of chop them very roughly. You don't need to make them too small. And, oops, and spill them, obviously. Just kind of sprinkle them over there. Everybody will get some, so don't worry too much about it. This is the beautiful thing about this cake, is that it's very imprecise. You can just kind of throw things in and it'll still taste great. So now I have about 2 apples that I've peeled and cut into tiny little slices like this. Again, don't worry too much about them being totally uniform, because it's all going to come out even in the end. So just kind of spread them around as evenly as you can. You don't need to make them too pretty because no one's really going to be able to see under all the nuts in the glaze anyway. And as you go, just kind of press them down a bit. Try to make them as even across the top as you can. And now, the batter, which has been waiting so patiently for us on the sidelines. And you just pour that over. And spread it out again as evenly as you can, just eyeball it. And that's good enough. It'll look great when it's done. So now this is going to go into a 350-degree oven. We're going to bake it for about 50 minutes. Depending on your oven, you may want to start checking on it a little before that, but basically, as long as there aren't too many crumbs on it, you're going to have some stickiness issues with the glaze anyway, so there's going to be stuff on your toothpick, but you can pretty much take a look at it too. It's going to be golden brown on the top, and that'll tell you it's done. So again, into the 350 oven for about 50 minutes. Okay, our cake is out of the oven. So now you're probably going to want to take a butter knife and just sort of run it along the edge, because even though you greased up the pan, it's probably going to have stuck just a little bit, and we want to make the transition from pan to plate as easy as possible. So once that's done, take your plate and do the old flip. And ta-da! Apple cake. It's delicious. It's really good for a snack, dessert, especially with ice cream on it. So I hope you can get a chance to try it and enjoy.